hang with us. Great, thanks. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, oh, shalom, shalom, my friends. Oh, sorry about the delay there of having to get me on the air, but I am, of course, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am delighted, as always, to be with you to talk about theater, talk about life in general, talk about art and culture. In fact, I eat a little bit of yogurt every day, so I have, what are you looking for?
Noise machine.
The what?
Noise machine.
The noise machine. Don't need that for this, because I'll be doing an interview with someone very delightful. May I please have my notes, which are over there, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very exciting. Dave, the producer and the host of this program, earlier this week, he was telling you that he went to see a play that was all of 7 minutes long, and he started writing it down and just walked in.
That was as long as the sermon.
Yeah, it's usually the length of my rabbinical reflections, but he went to see a show called Performance for One, because there's one actor, and they're doing this show just for that other person in the room. So,
is it a mitzvah?
It is a mitzvah to go and see the show, which was written by the person that we have on the telephone with us. What? Yeah, he's plugged in. His name is EDWARD EINHORN, and this man has been doing theater downtown, midtown, all over the place for like 20, 30 years now. Let me read some of the shows that he's done. He's done The Resistible Rise of J.R. Brinkley, The God Project. He adapted To Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, which is a rather sexual thing there, and of course, Performance for One. He also does kind of music stuff and operas. He did Letters to Engels, a Karl Marx opera, and we'll be hearing a little bit of that after the.
Did he write children's books?
Well, we can ask him, because I also. So first of all, David, are you there? Can you hear us, and can we hear you?
Edward.
I'm here.
Oh. Edward, oh, good. Shalom to you. How you doing? I'm going to make you a little louder so that we can hear you even better. How are you doing this fine Shabbos morning?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. I can't make this any louder. Oh, I know I can make it louder. Hold on. There we go. That's the problem. That's the problem. Now you're going to be loud and clear. So, how is Performance for One going?
It's going great. We've done about 16, 18 performances in all over the city, and actually also in Woodstock, New York.
Oh.
And we have these little venues that have given us the space, from Washington Heights to Governor's Island, all over the place. And some people reserve, and some people just walk by and discover it.
Well, let me ask you, how did the concept for doing this one-on-one show in pop-up places occur to you?
Well, it probably came from I had gone to a theater piece where I was a judge for an award, and I arrived at the play, and there were no other audience members, and it was a 2.5-hour play. It wasn't necessarily the best play I've ever seen, but you have these actors really acting their heart out just for me, and I became really aware of myself as an audience member and the responsibility I felt to these actors who are working so hard in front of me to be responsive. And I thought about the role of the audience member and how you sort of forget that when you have a large audience around you. And so I wanted to take the experience of theater going and make it sort of distill it into one little piece that was what I feel is the building block of what theater is. And so it's a story that's told to that one audience member, but it's also about the idea of being an audience member.
Now, let me ask you, you're quite prolific and you've been at this for many years. Have you ever counted how many one-act plays, how many full-length plays, musicals? Have you ever done the count? How much have you written over the course of all these years?
It's really hard to calculate because there are just various variations on things. Like you mentioned, the Letters to Engel piece, which is just a short little piece. That's actually just a 10-minute opera. But it was part of an evening that I also created called Money Lab, which was a bunch of vaudeville on things that related to economics and money in general. And so I wrote a few different pieces that were part of the vaudeville. Some other people wrote it, and then the more disparate types of things I work on, the harder it becomes to calculate. But I guess probably 30, 40 projects over the years.
Wow. And when did you start? Did you start in college, or take us back to how Edward Einhorn started doing what you've been doing all these years?
Well, I started doing theater in college, but I wanted to be a writer since I was a kid. So about 7 years old, when I was 7 years old, I read the Oz books, and there was a afterword by an author called Edward Wageneck, and he said when he was young, he had read the Oz books and decided to become a writer, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So I went in and told my parents I was going to be a writer, and I kept saying it over and over again.
Wait, did your mom and dad pull their hair out? Did they put their heads in ovens? And no?
I was 7 years old. They thought how cute. Little did they know that I would stick to it. And later, my father tried to convince me to go that I could also be a writer and a doctor, but that didn't really work out. And the first actually published books I had were sequels to the Oz series, because somebody had come to a play I wrote, and he was a publisher. And we started chatting, and they were going to be publishing. We were looking for an author for a new Oz book, because it was going to be the 100th anniversary of Oz. And I said, well, that's what made me interested in writing in the first place. And I gave you a proposal. And so my first published book turned out to be a sequel to the Oz novel. So it sort of came back around.
So you are the same Edward Einhorn. If people Google you, the first thing they tend to see is actually a children's book author. That's you too?
That is me as well, yes.
Oh, okay. So is that kind of your day job, as it were?
I don't know what my day job is. I teach some writing. I do some children's book writing. I run a theater company. I do freelance directing and freelance writing, and all of those things all together are, enough stuff. It's the gig economy.
Wait, no, really. Now you're also Mazel Tov. I saw you're married for a few years now, Mit Mazel.
Yes.
What does your lovely wife do?
She is an architect, and she is moving into green buildings now. So she's going to work for the city, helping create environmental regulations for buildings.
Whoa. Well, pretty much every theater in New York is going to have 20 violations now.
It has become difficult. I was working in a theater last year that was partially funded by the city, but as a result, they had to spend a long time making sure that they were really compliant with all the new regulations.
Well, do theaters, are they grandfathered, or can they not have to be up to code if they're over a certain bunch of years old or something like that?
They can be grandfathered, but if you do a major renovation, you have to then update it. So it's complicated. But yeah, there are a lot of theaters right now that are grandfathered into the old rules. But the new ones have to follow.
Let me ask Edward Einhorn, speaking of theaters and theater companies, you put together as maybe it's that thing of like, look, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a director, I'm not getting work on Broadway, I'm not getting into Manhattan Theater Club or the Vineyard or places like that. Let me just form my own goddamn theater company so I can just get my shows done. Was that kind of the idea behind Untitled Theater Company number 61?
Sort of. When I started, I was just trying to do a few shows, and it wasn't about whether I was getting into Manhattan Theater Club or the other places. I just wanted to had stuff I wanted to put up, and I want a way to put it up. And the first one I was not going to repeat. A friend of my mother's owned an art gallery, and donated the space, and I put up one, and it went well, and I put up the next. And what I actually didn't realize is that there's really a few tracks you can go with theater, and one is to try to get involved with the institutions, and one is to work independently. And deliberately or not, I chose the work independently version.
And you don't regret it. It has been a good life, or even though it's a gig economy forever for someone like you, it's been the right choice.
I love what I do. Sometimes I have certainly wondered, what if I went, the other way in terms of the way I pursued what I'm doing. But I love what I do, and I'm moving the show for the first time to London. A London theater is picking it up, and it's going to play off West End in London in the spring.
Which play is this? You're talking about Performance for One, or which?
No, this is a play called The Marriage of Alex Vitopoulos by Gertrude Stein.
Okay.
And it went up here in 2017 at a theater called Here, and it got a very nice review from the chief reviewer of the Times, and so that led to it being picked up in London for an off-West End theater.
Nice.
There. And so that's very exciting to me, and they're hiring me to direct it as well.
Whoa, very nice. So see, here, this is the thing. If you write about, if either you are or you get to write about the LGBTQ community, you can get your shows done.
Well, I think that hopefully less the subject matter and more the play, but yeah, there's we've been doing plays of all different sorts for years and years now. And the next one that goes up is going to be about my family. It's about my grandfather who discovered the Rh factor in blood. So that's much more of a personal piece. And I do a lot of things on science and politics and that sort of thing as well.
Cool. Now we're talking with Edward Einhorn, and one of the things that the early ways that you and the theater company made your mark is that you did a festival of plays by Václav Havel, who was first, he was in prison in Czechoslovakia, and then he became the president of Czechoslovakia. I mean, the guy who hobnobbed with everyone from Lou Reed to major head of state and an important man of the 20th century. And he came to the festival. There's pictures of you with him.
Sure. Yeah, he was very I'm happy about the festival. So we did everything he had written up to that point, and he was there for the full time of the festival. As it happened, after we planned it, Columbia University decided they wanted to bring him over for their own reasons, and so I was able to coordinate with Columbia and make sure that he was there for all the shows. And then he wasn't sure how often he would be able to be at the theater at first, and he came to opening, and I think he was probably a little afraid, understandably, but he didn't know what the quality would be. He didn't know, I sort of talked his agent into it, but I don't know if he trusted it yet. And so he said, I'm not sure how much I'll be able to be there, but I'll definitely be there at opening. And so he came to opening, he liked it. He came to the next one, he liked it. And then he just started showing up a lot. And so I got to spend quite a bit of time with him.
So what did he share with you? What was Václav Havel like?
He was a very sweet, unassuming man who loved being in the theater. We did a party on the anniversary of the Velvet Revolution, which he led, of course. And we didn't expect him to show up because obviously he's the former president. He has diplomatic duties, etc. We were doing it in a small theater, the party in a small theater in Brooklyn, and.
Wow, he schlepped to Brooklyn. Oh my God, poor guy. Yeah.
Well, he had a car then. He was being driven, but he showed up and he brought Madeleine Albright and he brought the ambassador for the Czech Republic and he brought his wife. All these diplomats came crowding into this small theater, and they gave a speech saying that on this anniversary of the Velvet Revolution, which was planned in a theater. by him and his friends. There's no place that he would rather be in his life.
Did you see the Havel plays that they were doing a couple of weeks ago off Broadway? They revived like the Vanek trilogy.
The Potomac, yeah, I did see those.
What'd you think compared to, because it's what, you directed, you put up this Havel thing. Now you get to see other people's takes on those on those plays. What'd you think?
Yeah. I had mixed feelings about it. I thought their production of Protest came out very well. I know the plays well, and they did some editing, and I wasn't so crazy about the editing that happened.
Okay.
And so, that affected, my impression. And I didn't feel like some of the nuances came through in the same way with the piece. But I did feel like they came through in Protest very well, and I thought that was a really good piece in the evening. And there was another Vanek, the play Audience, which is also a Vanek play,
right,
was just done at the Bohemian National Hall, and it's actually a company of Czechs who were involved in the Velvet Revolution. One of the person playing the lead role was actually injured in a car accident that was related to the Velvet Revolution, and he's wheelchair bound. And they've been doing this play for 30 years, and I finally got to see it. I heard a lot about it.
Wow.
And that was an amazing production. That was really, there's that mixed feeling that I sometimes feel when I've directed a show and someone else directed and you watch it and you're like, oh, that's really good. I wish I had done that moment in my show.
Because Audience is the one that everybody revives. That's the one that they always do.
Yeah.
Everywhere it's the guy in the brewery and he's with the boss, and the boss gets progressively drunker. Yeah, and I've seen it be really funny, and I've seen it be, political, but not so funny. It's better when it's funny, I'll tell you. But anyway.
Yeah, it's good when it's funny. And this one was funny.
Good.
And, I've watched many productions of it too, and often I'm like, oh, they got that right, but didn't get this, and I think we did this part better or whatever. This time I saw it, and I was like, oh, they really know this play. They really understand it from inside out. So that was amazing to watch.
Now we're talking with Edward Einhorn, the playwright and the artistic director of Untitled Theater Company, number 61. That is, I keep mentioning, and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? That is the name of your theater company, Untitled Theater Company, number 61. I'm just wondering, where did that come? That must have been like when you were trying to register or something, get your 501c3. Where did the number come from?
So as I mentioned, our first show was in an art gallery, and I thought it was a one-off. And there were a lot of paintings around called Untitled Number X, Untitled, whatever. So as a sort of joke, I called us Untitled Theater Company, and thinking that was a joke that would work in the art gallery, never thinking that in the next 25 years or so that would be our name. And then my brother, who's a lawyer, incorporated it, and he's my older brother by a bit, and so he was actually born in 1961, and so he asked if he could make it number 61 as his payment for his legal services, which I agreed to.
Oh, that's excellent. So, besides the Havel Festival, what would you say are one or two of your absolute proudest moments, either as a playwright or as the artistic director of this theater company, or maybe they're combined?
I do have to say, like, the first going to London, I was both very proud of the production, and we were doing this for a long time, and we've gotten a lot of reviews in the Times. This was the first time the chief reviewer came and he gave it a raise, and that was really, it was nice after all those years to have that happen. So that was really exciting. And then that production of Joanne Bruce Dream of Electric Sheep that you mentioned, which we had this theater three-legged dog that let us build and rehearse the whole thing in the theater. We had a really rare luxury with that. and we made a production, and they have huge video technology and such. We were able to make a production that seemed like it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and was, it was expensive for us, but I think it was like $50,000 to make.
Yeah, can I ask you how you raise the money for your theater company? How do you raise the money to do these shows? Because you kind of got to be not just playwright, not just director, but sometimes chief cook and bottle washer. I mean, do you do funding, crowdfunding now? Do you know rich people?
Crowdfunding and donations, and I write grants. Feels like all the time. And we have some really nice donors. There's a foundation called the Shapiro Foundation, which has been a major support.
Shapiro, Jews, yes!
Yes, indeed. And there are city funds, and there are state funds, and there, and all those grants. But it is hard because, as well as being the artist, you have to be writing the grants all the time.
Well, that's the other question I have for you, Edward Einhorn, is how much time because, you've got to be the artistic director, you've also got to write these grants for funding and raise money and deal with also life as a person in New York, a married person. When do you write? When do you have time to do the creative part of your life? Do you block out an hour or two or three every day to do that?
I don't do quite an hour or two or three every day because I have to be in the mindset to write. So when I'm in the midst of production, I just can't write. But I try to have some time that I know I'm not going to be quite as quickly in production, and I'll write then. And then I sort of like work on a project, relatively intensely. And it's, for me, that's where I'm happiest. Honestly, is either writing or being the director in the room. That's why I do all the work, which is exhausting, is to have the opportunity to do the work that I love. And so sometimes I, wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't sleep, and I'm like, I'm going to write something, and that is just going to make me happier in general to write it.
I mean, that's a wonderful way to go about your life, that you can. That, you write when you want to and you need to, because writers need to write. And then the rest of the time it's like, oh, okay, let me work on this grant proposal. Let me do that. Well, let me try and coordinate. Let me see when I'm going to London. Let me see when this is happening. And it's not a bad way to spend, I don't know, probably 110 out of the 140 hours of your week that you have,
Yeah, no, it is not bad. So I am trying to slowly figure out ways to spend less time on the bureaucratic side and more time on the artistic side. I've been working on getting more freelance work that I don't have to be a producer on. And one of the things actually I love about Performance for One is it's a really simple piece to put up. It's not that expensive. It's not, it doesn't kill me as a producer, but it's really rewarding to be there and to have the production. And, what's particularly amazing about Performance for One for me is that we've built up an audience over the years, and I see a lot of the same faces. But because we're moving from place to place, and because we have it open to anyone who walks by, people who have no idea who we are, people who don't go to the theater, just end up walking in, and then they're sort of transformed. And it's really exciting to reach people I would never reach otherwise.
Have the reactions ranged from laughs or people bursting into tears, whatever they do, or have they been more muted?
There have been a lot of people cry. So there are two, actually, there's part one and part two. I think David only saw part one, but there's part two ends up with a little bit more crying, and part one ends up with a little bit more laughing. But they both have a mixture. And I have 8 performers in rotation. There's only one of them does part two, but the other 7 do part one. And they each have their own style. So there's this performer, Elizabeth, who when she's doing it, I always hear the audience laughing and her laughing. And then there are other ones that I feel like a lot of times the audience walked out, tears. In fact, there was a woman who walked by with her boyfriend, and he didn't want to stop, but she did. They walked away, and then he came back, and she went in, and she came out, and she was crying. And he said to us, "What did you do to her?"
That's always the question. You know, come out of a show. What did it do to you? How did it hit you that way? Speaking of shows doing things to people, one of the questions that I always love asking, whether it's actors and writers on Broadway or cabaret people, you have been doing this so long, and especially in intimate kinds of theaters. What are some of the hell nights or the most ridiculous things that have happened in the crowd when you've had a show up?
The most ridiculous? Well, it actually was, once again, with performance for one, the having that one-on-one audience reaction also has created these insane responses sometimes that you would never think anyone would do in the theater. Where like one person started critiquing the actor as she was doing the performance and giving her feedback about you should. I don't know if you were feeling that line. Were you feeling that? Like all these are. Or somebody starting their own monologue in the middle of the actor's monologue, and it's really and sometimes people just sort of give their train of thought as the actor is talking, and like it's the silent part out loud, and so I see sort of the normal audience behavior, but magnified.
But you get outliers also, and as you said, sometimes it's exaggerated. And the actor makes it clear, especially in the part one, apparently, that it's, even though it's a monologue per se, it doesn't exist unless there's two people in the room. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just a rehearsal. Yeah. It's just an actor in a mirror or something. But the other person is part of the show.
Yeah. There's a line where she says, the two of us share the responsibility for this performance equally.
Right.
I'm the one who talks and you're the one who listens, but, nonetheless.
Can you remind us, by the way, when and where people can still see performance for one, if they're in the New York area?
Sure. So we are at Art Not Places today and tomorrow, which is, we're actually out on the street now. It's a festival of street art on 14th Street, and we're right next to the High Line. So that's today from 3 to 6, and tomorrow from 2 to 6. And then on November 3rd, we're going to be at this venue called the Torn Page Salon in Chelsea.
The what salon? I didn't hear you. The what salon?
The Torn Page Salon.
Torn Page Salon, so, okay.
Yes, and it's run by the son of Rip Torn and Geraldine Page.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So that's why it's called the Torn Page Salon, and so we'll be there November 3rd from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Sunday, and then I'm sure we'll be back at various places. We have a website, UntitledTheater.com, and we put on the schedule, or update the schedule when there are new performances as we go.
And also people can, by the way, you have a website that people can check out. It's EDWARDEINHORN.com. It's Edward, like Edward would normally be spelled, Einhorn, EINHORN. So it's essentially, kind of, as that should sound, it's Edward Ein. There we go. Einhorn.com. So we've been having a lot of delight talking with you and about theater and theater and theater and theater. You did make a movie. It was
yes,
called.
I did.
Yeah.
It was based on. There was a play written during the Holocaust in the Terezin camp, and if you know Terezin, it was a sort of oddball camp during the Holocaust because. It wasn't one of the death camps. It was more of a transitionary camp. But it was also the show camp that they would invite the Red Cross to say, oh, it's not so bad in the concentration camp.
Right.
And so they allowed people to do some art there. And this writer, a Czech writer, Karl Schwenk, wrote a play called The Last Cyclist, which was making fun of the Nazis. And then that was sort of lost for a while, but one of the actors who survived, Yana Shedova, kept it and sort of preserved it. And then it was adapted, found and adapted by the producer of the project, Naomi Tate. And so I directed it as a film that we finished, and now we're sending to film festivals and such. So we should hopefully find some homes for it soon.
Is there any place people can watch it yet? Is it posted anywhere, or it's got to do the festival circuit first, and then
it's got to do the festival circuit first? Yeah, because in order to get into the festival, they want to premiere it, etc. But there is we do have a trailer that's up.
Oh.
So if you look up The Last Cyclist trailer, you can see what that's about. And hopefully we'll find some dates soon, and then once we've done that, we'll figure out the wider release plan.
Well, cool. So here's the deal. We're finishing our lovely conversation with Edward Einhorn, and of course, two Jews talking to each other. The Holocaust has to come up. You know, he brings up terror. I'm not that familiar with terrazine. I'm more into thorazine myself. But you know, just tease. Thank you very much. So here's the thing. We talk about all the things that you do and then the work that you have to play. What are the projects, one or two, that you're working on over the next half a year, let's say? Do you have an idea for a play that you don't mind talking about, or you keep silent about stuff until it's written? Yeah.
Sure. So I mentioned the play about my grandfather that's going up in January and February. And then I have two developments. One is an opera, which is about, based on an ancient Greek Jewish play from the 2nd century BCE. And it's written by Ezekiel the Tragedian.
Wait. Ezekiel the what?
The Tragedian. He was a Greek playwright tragedian who wrote a play about the Exodus. And it's only just in fragments now because at the time, the elders found it to be paganism to do theater. They thought Jews should never do theater. And of course, that is why today none of us do theater. But I took the original script and then I surrounded it by a modern day piece, and so it's a half opera, half play based on that original piece. And then my other thing is I wrote a play called Almabea, which is more of a science fiction-y thing. 3 female actors in this caught in this one pod that really can only sustain 2 people. And so it's a very small but intense drama.
I'm a Bear, is that the name you said?
Almabea. So it's A-L-M-A, second word is B-A-Y.
Bea, I'm a Alabea. Almabea. Almabea. Yes. So, Edward Einhorn, it's been a delight talking to you, but I can't let you go before asking, how Jewish are you?
Well, as you may hear from my project, I'm pretty Jewish.
Well, how were you raised? Conservative? How much do you believe now? Do you ever go to shul? That sort of thing.
I grew up conservative. I'm agnostic, whatever that means. But I consider myself more Reconstructionist now than conservative, but I do a lot of work on Jewish subjects in my theater. And, you know, I go occasionally. My ex-girlfriend is a conservative rabbi. You know,
my goodness. Wow. So you dumped the rabbi for your current wife. Look at this. Whoa.
What?
You can't see, but I'm holding up a Torah as we speak. Yeah. But first of all, I guess you would understand when I say Mazel Tov on all the projects that you're doing. Mazel Tov on Performance for One, that people can go find and see over the next couple of, through November 3rd. They can see it in various places. To find out more, there's UntitledTheater.com, or is it Untitled Theater Company? What's that website?
UntitledTheater.com.
And is it theater, R-E-E-R-Q-W? Which, how do you spell it?
It is E-R, but we also have R-E if somebody types that out that way.
So they'll both
You'll
work.
end up on the same place.
UntitledTheater.com, and of course, EDWARDEINHORN.com as well. Edward, what is your Hebrew name?
Yehuda Abba.
Yehuda! It is a joy for me to wish you much continued success with the theater that you are doing. And best of luck, of course, in London when your show goes there, and anywhere that your work goes. It's been lovely having you in the neighborhood. Happy holidays to you, and shalom to you.
The same to you. Thank you.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Gotta get them to say shalom, of course. That's the whole point there. But yes, wonderful
Rabbi,
talking.
what an interesting guest.
Yeah, well, playwrights are going to be interesting.
Yeah.
They're going to be thoughtful. They're going to be hardworking, and they're going to have all these creative things to talk about. Yes, absolutely.
But all his plays are Spanish, right? Like Linda, something Linda. No, Linda
Well,
was
Czech. He's very into the whole Czech
Yeah,
thing.
but Alma means soul.
Yeah, I wish I could get a
Alma-
Czech or two. That would be
Alma,
awesome.
no,
Yeah.
not Czech, like Czech.
Well, that might be a name. Alma, like Alma Meyer or Mahler.
Yes,
Yes.
Alma, yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, let's hear a little piece of what we were talking about before, Letters to Engels, a short Karl Marx opera that Edward Einhorn wrote the music for a while ago.
Engels. I wrote a whole paper about Engels.
Really? Oh, yeah.
We did about the...
I like Marty Engels.
So Engels talked about the oppression of the family, so that the father oppresses the wife oppresses the children, right? That the reproduction of the system of oppression in society is microcosmed in the family. I thought that was wild.
Huh. So it's sort of a 45-degree Engels. Oh, I got it, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, this is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon. Let's hear a little bit of Letters to Engels, and then I'll bring Dave back for the rest of the program.
You're such a good friend.